All right, just a minute, guys. Just
Well,
sharing the video.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
The old two hippies, one drunk.
I didn't bring my
page.
guitar up, sorry. Or if you hate that part, you're welcome.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to start us off.
Sweet.
This is the Two Hippies, One Drunk Road Life Edition. In this show, we dive a little deeper into what it's like traveling the country in a van with three comedy buddies. In our On the Road episodes, we hit the highlights, and here we'll be breaking down more of the day-to-day activities, things we are learning about each other, as well as focusing more on specific themes that may be harder to cover in the week-to-week basis. If you haven't yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook, Spotify, iTunes, as well as reviewing us 5 stars is such a huge way to help us keep growing and moving forward on our journey. We do regularly mention our Venmo, Eric Fady, one word, Eric, ERIC, FADIE. And we understand it's always tough to ask for money, but a way to also help us without donating is to share our videos we put on our Facebook, or buy some of Tyler's art, or Scott's tarot readings. These are things to help us grow and keep us on this journey. So if you haven't done that, try to do it. You know, honestly, sharing is the best way to do that.
Yeah.
And money too. Yeah. You can give us money too. Either way, whatever you want to do, give it. So this week we're doing an on the road life episode with me and Scott, talking essentially about something I've kind of been curious about, but definitely didn't really want to delve into because it scares me and Eric. Eric's not here right now. He is hanging out with one of the Kennedys. I should mention that.
The sons of our mysterious benefactor.
Yeah, our mysterious benefactor. He's staying there, so he won't be here this week, but he will be here tomorrow for the episode. But since honestly, I think it's a better thing anyway. It's you and me talking, because I feel like it's still scary. Eric doesn't want to hear about these tarot readings until we're done. Yes. Is kind of how I have always thought about it. And I don't either. Not like as long as it already happened, it doesn't really bother me. I can look at it on retrospect and be like, we went and those things happened, but they're not continuing to happen. Yes. Don't you dare tell me a future one. That's what I would say. I swear to God, you sneak in your little bullshit. But so yeah, we were thinking about kind of just going over the tarot reading Scott has done for some of the places we've done the most. I don't know, how would you describe that? Like the most interesting ones that we've kind of covered.
I skipped. You know, there are places where we only go there for a day. So in situations
it's like, you can't really do that.
And the thing you got to understand is I do my tarot readings like Tyler will know. Eric can tell you too, I'm sure. I mean, there's not a day goes by that I don't do my tarot readings in general. So yeah. And I don't always write all of them down, but the ones
what is your reasoning behind doing it every day? Just I'd like to know.
Any question I'm thinking about. Like, that's really honestly what it comes down to, is I'll have a thought in my head. I'll have a question.
Because you're not just doing it once a day anyway. You're doing it like a couple times a day. I always hear you flipping your little book or whatever. So like you're definitely doing it, I guess, for every question you have about the journey. Or is it just like, hey, should I go to the bathroom or not?
No. So questions about the journey for sure. Okay. Also questions just in my own personal life and my own sort of stuff. And that was kind of the other thing I was going to say, is there are certain ones where I'm like, okay, this tarot reading, I know what it meant, but it had a personal meaning for me that's not really necessary to get into for this podcast. Some of those I kind of skipped. I tried to get ones where I really thought like we could talk about, like, I know there'd be a couple of different angles to it and stuff like that. Yeah. Can I ask out of curiosity, just really quick, what do you... Because, okay, at the risk of speaking for Eric, I think that if Eric were here, he would say that more or less he's open to that sort of stuff. And because of experiences we've had, he believes in the accuracy of my tarot readings. That's what he generally, would you say that's a fair assessment? Yes. What is your opinion?
I would say, for me, the reason I'm not entirely cool with hearing about them is I feel like that shit puts it in stone. I feel like without the tarot readings, it could be whatever it is, and it can change. When you give something a structure, it follows that structure, and I think that's rigid and kind of pushes us down a path. If it says it's going to be a bad time, now I think it's going to be a bad time.
Sure.
Whether it was or not, it's like that future sight thing, like, or psychics or whatever, where it's like chicken or the egg. Like, did you telling me that, did that make it happen or whatever? And if you don't have that, it's kind of like, no, like it's up to whatever happens. I'm kind of going with the whim of the trip rather than like, oh, nope, now I kind of feel that irritation towards you because, one, you told me it's going to be a bad time. Now I'm mad at you. There's the bad time. Like, you created it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
That's more so because it's like, I'm not even saying the tarot isn't a viable form of reflecting on what's going on around you. I just think that it puts things too much in a rigid form, whereas now I have to do that. Yeah. And whether I actively want that or not, like, it's still.
And I would say out of the three of us, you're also probably, I feel like we're all open to a lot of shit, but you're probably the biggest skeptic in that, like, I feel like there's a part of it too that would be like, when you say that, you're like, I don't necessarily believe it's predicting the future, so why am I going to let it dictate
what I'm doing? Yes, and everyone else in the car. Like, it's not just, it's you, it's Eric, and it's me, and it's telling us what we should expect rather than, like, the only time I'd say you kind of got away with it is Hawaii, because nobody could predicted that we got sick. But you did predict that. So something was going to happen, and that definitely did happen. So let's get into, do you want to start with with Hawaii?
Yeah. Okay, if I could just really quick, right before we do that, one other thing I kind of wanted to say about this at all is my own personal view on it, which is honestly, like, I think that this is not exclusively my belief. This would be a belief within Hermeticism or whatever, but very, like, broadly speaking, I believe we have multiple versions of ourselves, and we reincarnate, and there are higher versions of us that understand patterns in a way the smaller versions do not. Okay. I believe that I'm communicating with that thing when I do the cards. I believe I'm communicating with a version of me that can predict the future in the sense that it's seen patterns so many times over thousands of years, over and over, throughout different reincarnations. Yeah. If that makes any sense. Without getting too whatever.
So you don't think it's actually telling the future. It's just like, nah, seen this before. Know what you're doing. Know where this path is going.
Although I feel like that's more or less saying predicting the future.
Okay. I disagree, but putting you in a box, but whatever.
So Hawaii. Yeah, I don't think I ever told you the specific cards that I pulled, which was the five, because we were on our way to Hawaii, and I was like, I hate to say this, guys, I think it's going to be a bad time. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And it was the Five of Discs, which the Five of Discs is a, okay, so fives are pretty much never good at all. Five's a bad number.
I thought that you said five is like manifesting the thing.
Okay, so... Man, it's hard sometimes to talk about this in a way that's not going too in-depth. So that you have the idea that, like, okay, you have one, and one is just a dot. One is just a thing. Yep. When you have two, now you have the thing and you have the observer.
Okay.
Now when you have three, now you have three dimensions. You have the thing, the observer, and the space.
Okay.
And then so with four, you have now stronger, more manifest sort of reality. You think about how a table has four legs. It's solid. It's real.
Yeah.
Five is the moment where movement starts to happen.
Okay.
Movement is...
Isn't that good, though? Is that represent, like, change? Is that the thing?
Yes. Okay. Change in a lot of ways, but change in a way that's kind of, like death is movement. That process of life to death is movement. It's a challenging in the Kabbalah, it's Geburah, which is the most difficult sphere. It's just, there's a lot of reasons for it, but fives are never really good. There's the Five of Discs, which is very much like a difficult physical reality, because discs represent the earth, they represent earth energy, they represent shit that is solidly here.
Yeah.
Poverty would be a Five of Discs thing. sickness, which in this case was
literally
what
happened.
I'd always draw 3 cards for all these. The second one was the Prince of Swords, and the Princess of Swords is
doesn't sound good. Doesn't
no.
sound good. Anytime you bring up swords, it always is like, that seems bad.
Yeah, no, swords are pretty indisputably considered the most challenging suit. They represent thought, and thought is Buddhists will say the root of all pain. And then, but in the case of the Princess of Swords, she's all about the court cards work is kind of almost people, or like they have a character to them.
Okay.
And so it's about this thing kind of cutting stuff down and destroying things.
Yep.
Which in this case to me would be like ended up being a virus.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like
literally breaking down our immune systems.
Because you could
was not COVID, just for the record.
No, but you could have had like the tower or something, which is like can be like a forest fire. It's like a storm. A storm doesn't have an agenda. A virus, which is kind of why I think Princess of Swords was a better choice for that. A virus has a fucking agenda. A virus wants to spread itself inside of you.
Yep.
And then the devil. And
okay. Yeah, that's very clear. I'm surprised you weren't like, we might die on this trip, man. Like for real. That would like irk me out. What did you think was gonna happen?
They were talking about storms. We're gonna have serious storm issues.
Fuck you, man. That would have been awful.
I mean, better than what happened.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It was beautiful the entire day. Well, it was rainy actually the first couple of days, but it was beautiful. So it wasn't like a ton of storms happen or anything.
That was my thought. I was like, are we going to get caught in some sort of a hurricane? Is there going to be, some sort of a serious storm?
I'm glad that didn't happen. I mean, I hate that because, we were heading out to Hawaii thinking this is going to be one of the coolest parts of our trip.
Yep.
And it turned out to be one of those places like where Eric finally was like, we need to get the fuck off this island. So.
Yeah, and I believe we even talked about that maybe briefly in another episode, but it was bad enough. And I feel like this ties into the devil too, because like the devil is really about being trapped and being a prisoner of a thing. And we did. Man. We had by the end of that, we were like, man, get us the fuck off of this island. Get us out of this hell that is Hawaii.
Please just let it end. And like me and Scott didn't even want to say it until Eric did, but once he did, it's like, yeah, please. So I feel like that is very relevant to all the things that we went through. At least it didn't go worse. I'm glad that it didn't go worse. Because honestly, if I read those cards, I'd be like, I don't think we should go to Hawaii. Like, good God.
I mean, honestly, there was a thought that crossed my mind. And I was like, but what are you going to? We've committed to this trip.
Yeah, we paid for the ticket.
Be an insane person.
Eric paid for the ticket. Whatever,
Be like, I read my tarot cards and I'm not going to Hawaii anymore.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's true. But I mean, that's some negative shit, like, for sure. And I mean, my thing with tarot, too, is I always feel like kind of it is negative. It's not always it's a harsh reality of what the fuck's going on. It's never like, things are going great. It's like, even if they're going great, better change this about yourself. Better change this about yourself. Kind of thing.
Okay, the one thing I would say about that is some people like to do reversals, which is where you put in upside down tarot cards too.
Yeah.
Fuck that. I'm not a fan of it whatsoever because tarot already is kind of perfectly balanced in that like half of the cards are kind of challenging. Half of them are kind of good.
Yeah.
You start throwing reversals into there. No, almost 3/4 of them are shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you're way more likely to get that.
Yep.
But I mean, I've had ones that were all good for sure.
So yeah, I mean, that was pretty much why you got. What's the next big one you got in your notes here?
So the next one I had in this one, I'm curious. I'm going to tell you what these cards are, and maybe you will find a way that they applied to you and Eric or to the trip as well. I certainly had a very specific reading that had to do with me as far as Phoenix, because Phoenix. I got the Ace of Cups, and the Ace of Cups is the beginning of an emotional journey. Cups represent emotion. It's like the seed of a thing. It can represent emotional endeavors in general. Friendships, something like this trip, a relationship.
Does it represent that it's like unstable, or does it represent that it's like?
No, it's like the seed of the thing.
Okay.
It's like the seed of the thing. It hasn't sprouted at all. a thing residing in the subconscious or something like that. The Two of Cups, which is nicknamed the Lord of Love, which is kind of a continuation of the Ace of Cups, that it's a little bit more present. And then the Eight of Cups. And the Eight of Cups is the Lord of Indolence. It's this moment where you kind of choose to walk away from a thing. Now, for me, there was a girl I was seeing right before this trip that I was still kind of seeing, and I had made it clear that, like, with us being on this trip, there was no way we could be in a relationship. There was no way we could be exclusive. If you remember, Phoenix was kind of when she approached me about that, and I had to be like, remember, I told you before we can't do this, and the point where we kind of stopped talking.
Yep.
So that to me was exactly
what it was.
I'm
trying to think, what were we doing? We were in
that resort. We did the
resort.
timeshare.
Okay, so the 3 cards were what?
The Ace of Cups.
The Ace of
Which
Cups.
is like the seed of emotional endeavor, love, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Two of Cups, which is a continuation of that. It's sprouting. It's movement. It's coming up above the air.
Yep.
And then the Eight of Cups, which is walking away from a thing.
I'm trying to think my emotional state at that time. I feel like I feel like that one might have to do with the person pulling the cards and asking the questions.
Yeah.
Because it's not entirely something that I dealt with. I feel like, if anything, if there was a seed of a relationship would be like the one we're on, the journey we're on. But I really feel like none of that really applies to what we did.
Yeah.
Because it's like, so it's the Ace of Cups, and then what else?
The Two of Cups.
The Two of Cups.
And just kind of a continuation of that. And then the Eight of Cups, which is...
So all cups.
Yes.
So very emotional
all
time.
Yeah.
It seems
we were
weird for
wine
me.
drunk the entire time.
We were very wine drunk, but it never became emotional. That's the only thing I would say. It's like honestly, during that time, I feel like it was one of the funner times of the experience that we've had, and it didn't really have a heaviness to it. Felt like, honestly, being there, you were going through some heavy shit just because because you bring it up, like this girl you're dealing with or whatever, and like I feel like that is clear for those cards.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, no, we're staying in this awesome place. Me and Eric are like feeling pretty legit. If anything, Eric was that was the start of Eric kind of dealing a little bit with his anxiety. It was more heavy moment. He definitely, when we went to the pool, like he said, like, this is such a relaxing thing. It's a break from what we've been doing or whatever, even though it wasn't that far into the journey. But so maybe a little bit he was emotionally overwhelmed. I did not feel any of that.
Yeah.
I felt like this was one of the funnest things we did. I had a great time. I felt very relaxed there. I felt very at ease.
See, the 2 first cards would kind of represent that.
Okay.
But
because they don't represent emotional instability. They represent just what?
You know what? And I'm almost curious. Yeah, they represent like very positive emotions.
Okay.
Very positive. Like I said, like you think about like the start of like an emotional endeavor. And what I mean by that is a positive emotion.
Yes.
Like,
yep. I mean, that's how it felt. It felt like the jumping off point. Because like before that, it was like a fucking run to Hawaii. And then honestly, a run after that to get to, I felt like Phoenix was the first time where things started settling in. Where we were finally at a point where I was like, oh, we're on this trip. It doesn't feel like, I don't know, I'm driving 100 miles an hour in my head.
Yeah. You know what? I'm trying to think of how, like, I kind of want to say this just because I do think it would apply to, particularly, I think we all had a great time there. And that's why 2 of them are positive. But that Eight of Cups thing, when you talk about this walking away and stuff like that, I go, we had 2 separate people who were close to us. One of them, who we're still close to, who's still a good friend, made the mistake of getting back into an abusive relationship that they since left.
Yeah.
That happened while we were in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And we were aware of it.
But can these cards, I guess it does apply to us because we're friends with them. Yeah.
Yes. And then the other one, we had another friend who we have not been friends with for a couple of years. freaked out in life and called her an abuser.
I don't believe that was after Phoenix.
No, it was Phoenix.
I'm
pretty positive.
Maybe it was Phoenix.
Yeah, I remember laying in that bed next to that jacuzzi.
Yes,
and hearing you pacing around the apartment, being like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god."
I do remember. Because I was thinking Phoenix, because not Phoenix, Flagstaff, because I talked to some people about that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're definitely right. I was in a situation with a close friend of mine for years, was going through a really insane thing, and I haven't heard about it for years. So I guess his shit was going crazy.
Yeah.
But to me, I felt like, no, I'm where I'm supposed to be. This is the start of the thing.
Yes.
So yeah, let's get into that you got Albuquerque there. I see.
Yes.
Is that the next one?
No, Flagstaff.
Flagstaff.
Actually.
Okay. All right.
Flagstaff, 9 of Swords. It's a guy. It's a Lord of Cruelty. Guy waking
Lord
up in the middle
of Cruelty.
Yeah, guy waking up.
These names, and how do you even not be terrified to pull a card? The fucking okay.
No, the 9 of Swords is hands down one of the worst cards. There's very little positive or redemptive about it whatsoever. It's that feeling when you wake up from a nightmare in the middle of the night. The Rider-Waite deck literally has a guy sitting up sweating from a nightmare.
Yeah.
The Priestess, which is kind of dark, broadly dark feminine energy, I guess. Kind of mysterious. A little bit represents sort of a black hole if you don't fully understand it. And then the 6 of Swords, which is basically the moment, it's called the Lord of Science. And the idea behind the 6 of Swords is 6 is a really great number.
Yeah.
6 is a great, for any of that sort of stuff. It is a number of perfect balance. On the Kabbalah, it lands in a spot where it touches everything else.
Okay.
So because of that, it's sort of it's probably the most positive number in a typical deck.
Yeah.
Swords are intellectual energy. So if you think about science, it's sort of perfectly balanced intellectual energy.
Yeah. I'm trying to think for Flagstaff.
We did go to...
went to the Grand Canyon,
Grand
Canyon. Honestly would be something to me that was very nostalgic.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of these cards, you're reading them and they apply to you.
Yeah.
A lot. And maybe vaguely to how I was at the state of things. But it wasn't always how my emotional state was or my mental state or how I was feeling at the time. Because to me, the Grand Canyon is very nostalgic. I worked there for a year when I was younger, and it was the only frustrating experience is you fucking hated it. So that was the experience I had to deal with. So if anything, I guess I am kind of dealing with I say swords are kind of prickly, but you kind of being irritated in that time period about being like this, because you went to the Grand Canyon too, but it was a very different experience.
I was in a bad mood that day.
Yes, you were not in a good mood. It represented a different thing to you. And to me, I loved it. I wanted to be there. It was very important to me. And if anything frustrated me, it was your attitude towards the thing.
But see, I would even argue in a case like that, you've got, like I said, the Priestess is a weird card when you draw it, because it's the card of the moon. It's the card of, there's this old idea that feminine energy is half of it. And this is kind of, because of when these cards were made, I think this is sort of an outdated idea, but you have the Empress or something like that, which is motherly, comforting energy.
Yeah. And
then you have the Priestess, which is dark and mysterious and unknowable, because they thought you couldn't know women back then.
Yeah.
They were mysterious.
Yes.
So to me, I always the Priestess is a really hard card to me, where I almost kind of just look at what's around it, because I don't even as somebody who's read it for years, I don't really know how to take that card.
Yeah.
So if you take that one out, I go I was kind of in a 9 of Swords state, and you were sort of in a 6 of Swords state.
So 6, because you said it's 6 of Swords. Even swords, though?
What are the
swords?
No, it's perfect intellectual balance. It is an intellectual card, but it is as good and positive as intellectually.
I mean, if you want to say that, like, it was still, I feel like, yeah, maybe you were one of the cards, I was one of the cards, and Eric represented the, like, mysterious card because he didn't know where his mental state was.
I could have seen that, yeah.
But, like, he was, like, a lot on this trip. We've had a lot of great times. It's been really amazing. But when it comes to, like, we are doing the on-the-road stuff, so this is more nitty-gritty. Like, Eric does, he's doing a lot. So, like, even back when we started, he's looking up places. He's finding out where we're going to stay the night. If we're going to be doing stand-up. Like, we've kind of divvied those jobs out. Yep. But it definitely was a lot on him. So I feel like he was in a mysterious purgatory state at that time. And, like, was like, yeah, I want to see the Grand Canyon. But also, like, man, I'm overwhelmed.
Yes.
Kind of thing by that.
Okay, so...
But I don't know. I don't want to speak for Eric. I just feel like absolutely in my head, that's kind of how I would read those, is like each one of them weirdly applied to us in different ways.
That was kind of my thought, to be honest. So
when you read it? I was going to ask that, like, with that, like, well, we'll do it with a different one, but just like, what did you think beforehand?
What did I think before? You know, it's funny. Okay, that would have been such a more pertinent thing before this trip. I've done it so much at this point. I tend to not even really, I just tend to write it down and be like, okay, I'm going to look back at this later.
Yep.
At this point. Partly because of what you were saying, where it's like, it can be kind of exhausting to sit there and go, well, what is this? And a lot of times, you have no fucking idea. Like, you'll look back at it and you'll go, oh, okay, maybe I drew 2 good cards and a bad card. And the bad card was I had a bad dream or a little thing went wrong. And the 2 good cards were very, very good. Or vice versa. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's a real scale. So
you just kind of like flip the cards, you write it down, and then later you'll react to it. Okay.
Yep.
Like after it's kind of already done.
Yeah, certainly with these sorts of questions.
Okay.
When it comes to the cities. So yeah, we had
Albuquerque. I am curious about that because I mean, in my opinion, it was scary at first, but awesome.
Yeah. Ace of Cups again, which is like I said, like the seed of an emotional endeavor. Good. And that was really kind of when we hit our stride with stand-up. Yep. Yes, that's what I really think. The Prince of Discs. And the Prince of Discs represents, I don't like when you talk about just putting the work in. It's just going there and grinding. And, I go and I till my land every day. And
I feel like that's so accurate because like me and Eric before the first Albuquerque show that we did, me and him were in there and just like this room is filled with fucking comics. It's gonna be a trudge. We just gotta get through it. These are gonna be the open mic nights. Oh God. And for me, specifically, like I have my guitar and every single time I go into an open mic, I know I'm gonna have to deal with some assholes judging me for that fact. Yep. And I felt that way specifically that night where it was just like people are looking at me. They're like being weird. I really don't want to do this set. And then it was one of the fucking best nights we ever had.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like the comics, not even like we all did great, but I loved that. I was so terrified about that before we did that set, I was scared. And then afterwards, the host of the show literally said, I was scared for you, but you killed it.
Thank you got several compliments from people on stage at night.
Yeah. And I mean, you did too. It's just a different thing because I was very terrified. I felt like you were like, yeah, I'm just doing a set.
Well, and I don't know if we've definitely all gotten our share, like, not to be like whatever, we've all gotten our share of, situations we wish had gone better too, but we've also gotten our share of compliments. We've all gotten our share of compliments from comics and stuff like that. Yeah. That night in particular, I really do think I'm like, dude, yeah, there was a feeling beforehand where I think somebody did shit on your guitar on stage.
Someone did,
beforehand or whatever. And then you had the host and somebody else both referenced.
Be like, I was scared, and then you killed it, dude. And I was like, thank God, like you actually liked what I did. Because anytime it's honestly, at this point, we've been doing it for a while. And when I'm on stage, I do feel if there's a crowd, I'm gonna do all right. I'm going to have an all right night. It's going to be fun for me. If it's just comics, flip a coin, baby. Because fuck. Like it really could be an issue. So that how does that relate to the cards?
I would say both of those. I mean, you were already saying, even I think all of that applies. I think that's exactly how I read it. The one other thing was the 5 of Discs, which also came up when we were sick in Hawaii. And I would also point out was when I started to get sick for the second fucking time.
Oh, yes, you did.
This trip.
You did.
Yeah, because I got a cold.
Yes, he did get a cold. I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the stuff where it's like, man, these tarot readings, they just seem like they're invoking stress. They're not really quelling anything. It's just like, oh, man, now I know something bad's going to happen. There it is. There's the thing.
Yeah, but you look at something like that, I go, Ace of Cups is a very positive card in a lot of ways. Prince of Discs is... I would say probably value neutral. Like I said, it really represents hard work, putting the work in, all of that. In the context of this trip, I'd say it's a positive card.
Yeah.
So you have two that are good and one that's challenging.
Yeah.
And you go, well, that's fucking life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's true. It just also would give me a lot more anxiety. Like, we've all had to deal with like a lot of pressure for this trip because it is stressful sometimes, but like that seems like it turned it up to 11. Like, I feel like it's like you've done a joke about like WebMD, how like you look up WebMD and then it'll be like, yeah, might be dying from cancer, or you might have the common cold or whatever. I feel like that's kind of how tarot is, where it's like, I might die tomorrow, or it could be like I stubbed my toe and it sucks.
Yeah, but it could also be like, yeah, you might fucking win the lottery, or you might find the love of your life, or like you might go outside and the sun hits you and it feels really nice. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other aspect of it too.
That's fair. That's fair. I just want those moments pure.
Yeah.
Without having to know. Instead of going, yeah, that's where that came from. I want to be like, this is nice.
And I would say the next two are very much, I think all positive. Roswell got the 10 of Cups, which the 10 of Cups is a moment that is perfect almost to the point of being a fantasy, if anything. Like, it is a lot of the time it's symbolized by like a rainbow or something like that. You think about like this thing that's so beautiful and it's so perfect, but you're 100% aware that it's relatively temporary.
Yeah, I would say weirdly enough, like we didn't do, did we do stand up in Roswell?
No.
We did not. But I did feel a weird sense of dreaminess at that point.
Yeah.
Because we had been traveling a lot and it did feel like we're past the point of running hardcore at it, and we had kind of set it in stone. This is what we're doing. This is our life. And then that was the point where like even Eric had that moment where he was like, I saw you guys sitting down by the parking lot and smoking or whatever. And like, it just made me so happy. It just felt like, this is what I wanted to do. This is my dream. This is the moments that I want. And during that time, it did feel very dreamy.
Yes. And I also feel like another element of that was also that in Corona and in Roswell or whatever, the energy out there is weird. The energy out there has that dreamlike quality.
When we went out to Corona and drove by, I mean, what we presumed is an actual crash site of an alien or whatever. You and I both were on that, like, it felt like we were tripping. Yes. It felt like I was coming up on some psychedelics, and it felt very weird.
And then the Four of Wands, which is kind of, it is... Mars and Venus perfectly kind of a lot of the time, like, it can symbolize even like if there's a card that symbolizes weddings, for instance, it would be that. And it's kind of this perfect harmony of feminine and masculine, of ambition and beauty, and all of that, which is just another, I mean, two of the most strikingly positive cards in the entire deck.
I feel like doing this I feel like we should absolutely have like a little videography of after we're done, do it, because it is kind of hard for me to remember that far back. I know it's only been 2 months or whatever, but it's still 2 months in the past that I can't remember where my emotional state was, who I was talking to, texting, like interacting with, what my mental state was. But I feel like we could do a thing where we do tarot, or you tell me about the tarot cards after we leave the place, after we leave and discuss it, because then it'd be fresher in our minds. And I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah,
honestly, this conversation is pretty wild. What the vague little string I can follow.
Now, the moment I thought of in Roswell when I look at these cards, because the third one is a Six of Swords, by the way, too, which, like I was saying before, it's that perfect intellectual balance. It's the Lord of Science. It's this moment where everything is kind of clear intellectually and all that. I think about, there was a moment where we drove out into the desert late one night and sat out and looked at the stars, the three of us.
Yep.
And that was
why does that represent that?
I don't know. It was this moment that was very pure, very beautiful, very kind of.
That's true.
Took all of that stuff together and kind of like.
Yeah.
Heightened it.
No, I agree. Okay.
So we had Fort Worth, where you guys went.
Let's kind of end it on Fort Worth.
Okay, well, if we're gonna,
we should. You got a lot here, man.
Right. That is a very.
He's got an insane amount, and we're about 34 minutes in.
Yeah, that's true.
Not trying to rush it, but we could do another episode on this.
That's a fair point. So yeah, Fort Worth. I would say you talk about how a lot of these are.
I'm curious. Do you have Charleston on there?
Yes.
Let's do that one. I am curious about it because we had a lot of.
If we're gonna do the rest of these, I could even talk to you about it afterwards. Should we just follow?
Yeah. Let's do Fort Worth.
Okay, no, because I was gonna say Fort Worth. So
sorry for interrupting.
No, not at all.
I was just thinking like that is a crazy bunch of shit happened in my life, in the experience we've had. It was a peak and a low all at the same time. So I was curious, but let's go.
No, it was a good one, and I think let's go back. If we're gonna go back to this at some point, then we'll just do up to the rest of them after So Fort Worth. This one was kind of weird to me. This is where you went and saw the that concert with Eric.
Oh, okay. Yes. Pat Green. Pat fucking Green.
And once again, so this one was kind of funny. I feel like it had probably two separate meanings, because I could say for me, I was sick with a cold at this point. I kind of expected the cards to be different than they were, because I was like, okay, I'm sick. I don't imagine that I'm going to have a great time or there's going to be much promise in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
But
it represented
there was, so for me, I think about there was that woman I went and saw in Austin who I've known for a long time, that we had a thing at one point. And this was the point when I started talking to her. So the Fool is the beginning of a journey. Six of Cups is nostalgia. It's remembering the past. It's that sort of thing.
Like this so applies to Eric.
Yes, that's what I was going to get to. Six of Wands is a moment where it's a victorious moment. It's a moment where work you put in comes to fruition.
Yeah.
And so
got a girl's number that night. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Talking about little instances. Yeah.
And so for me, I was sick in that period. And I look at it from a relationship avenue where there was a woman I'd wanted to meet for a long time that was in Austin that I knew, that we reconnected in that moment. For you guys, I go, that's exactly that concert.
Yeah, that concert. Because it was a very stressful thing before that. We were in that shitty hotel. We were in a frustrating situation. But me and Eric did earlier in the day, Eric kind of, had a panic attack, was freaking out because of all the stress from this trip. So I talk about this all the time to the guys or whatever, but tension and release is a big thing I think that life has to offer, where it's like, this is a frustrating situation, but something good is going to come out of it. If you just push through, if you pursue it or persevere. And he did kind of have a little free, because he was like, am I not having enough fun? I'm supposed to be doing being here and experiencing the whole thing. And then when we went to the Pat Green concert, it all was you could just see in his eyes that sparkle of this is amazing. I'm happy I'm here. I'm so glad that we did this. And he had met people, or he met a bunch of different people that night. Actually, me and him both did. Met a bunch of people that we sat with and just had a great experience. So I feel like that does apply more so to me and Eric's thing, and maybe a little bit to you, just because when we came back, we had one of the funnest nights, drunken things coming back and messing around with you.
No, like I said, I mean being sick because I was so sick at that point, I didn't go to the concert with you guys.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, the theme that runs through both of those things, where I go, oh yeah, I was making plans to meet this woman in Austin that I had wanted to in the past or whatever. It was that is how it would apply to me. And then I feel for you guys, it would be that, because it's this weird mix of with the cards, this mix of nostalgia and work you put into something bearing some fruit.
Yeah. Okay.
And especially you think about with Eric with that, it was a very nostalgic thing for him to even go there.
Yes, because he's been there before, and he fucking loves Pat Green.
Yeah.
And I mean, he said, we do have a video of this on our page. Check it out, of Eric literally saying on a video that I took, "This is the best goddamn night of my life."
Yeah, and I do think you guys coming back wasted. It was that naive, fun kind of. because the fool represents the beginning of a trip. He also kind of represents a purity and an innocence.
Yeah.
That, you know, when you think about somebody who's really drunk and having a good time tends to exhibit.
And honestly, Eric hasn't like drank a lot on this trip. Like he's not gotten super hammered any of the nights really, other than that night. He was very, very drunk that night and wasn't like annoying or loud or obnoxious. Like he was in a very free-spirited, fun, happy kind of way. Like that I'm trying to think of other times he's been. Maybe
New Orleans and Charleston.
Charleston and New Orleans. Yeah, you're right.
But I still don't think on that
level. That he was so
most.
happy and just like the joy was radiating off of him.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, that's our episode this week. Thank you guys for checking us out. I don't know if it was a little weird, us talking side to side. Maybe we should change it up and look at you guys next week. We were just trying something new to keep the conversation more like a conversation. But we will be back tomorrow for our 2 Hippies, 1 Drunk episode. Eric will be hosting that, and we will be discussing. Like Eric's doing a bracket with a bunch of different vanity plates. So check that out tomorrow. If you, again, haven't subscribed to our page, give us 5 stars on iTunes and review us, or buy some of my art or get a tarot reading from Scott. Just message us and we'll give you that information, and we will see you tomorrow.
Awesome.